Okay.
Terrific. Well, happy August, everybody.
Happy August.
I think we refer to the Ides of March, but I propose that we have the Ides of August officially instituted here. But thank you, John, for coming all the way from California just for this meeting.
No, not true. Not exclusive.
Anyway, thank you everybody for coming in the heat and humidity of this wonderful August day in New York City. May I have a motion to open the meeting of the August 1st Voter Assistance Advisory Committee?
I so move.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so have a meeting. I guess the first action is approval of minutes from our June 23rd, 2011 meeting. All in favor? First row, so motion.
Motion.
Good, second. All in favor? Aye. Terrific. So I guess a report of the chair. So this has been a month of a lot of planning. We have nothing officially to announce, but I do want to thank everybody who came out and had lunch with me for your participation. It was really terrific to have that exchange, and I really appreciate the fact that you were there. There are some very exciting developments which we can go into an executive session. We're making a lot of progress on being able to, very close to being able to officially report that we have a media sponsor for our first town hall, and that we also have a foundation who is very, very interested, and a couple of other significant organizations who are joining our effort on a volunteer basis. I'm very excited to be able to tell more of that. I wish I could actually state those things publicly, but I think we'll be able to do that very shortly. I have nothing else to report. Amy, would you like to go ahead and do a report?
Well, I guess I just wanted to say that it's been about 7 months since the mission of voter assistance has moved to the Campaign Finance Board, and I think that everyone who was doubting whether or not this was a move that was going to improve voter assistance in New York City is hopefully happy that what we have done is really improved what was being done and building on what had been done for the past 20 years. And so I want to thank all of our staff who was involved in this, making this happen, and a lot of them are sitting in the audience today. Anita's right here, but she's been doing it for a long time. So, but I really think that after 7 months, I think we have really done a lot of things, and we are building on that, and we'll do great things going forward too.
Thank you, Amy. Anita, would you like to give your report?
Surely, thank you. So as we've talked about at other meetings as well, some of our efforts are going toward the Local Law 29, which mandates that certain city agencies, 16 of them, prepare plans for voter awareness, education, voter registration, and distribution of voter registration forms. Now, what we have been doing here at the Campaign Finance Board is meeting with the agencies individually to try to have very robust plans. I'm so very happy to report today that we have a representative from the Department of Environmental Protection, Sarah Pecker, who is joining us, and I think it just shows the commitment of the agency that they really want to know what we are doing. Since our last meeting, we met with a few agencies, one of them being the Department of Finance, also the Department of Transportation, Taxi and Limousine, Parks and Recreation. So we are working with each of them to make sure that they are complying with the law, distributing forms, and also creating a voter registration plan, a voter awareness plan that will really help to fulfill our mission of getting more New Yorkers registered to vote and having more participation at the polls. A few things that I will share is the Taxi and Limousine. We do have the green light now from TLC to conduct the taxi survey. The taxi survey, as we said before, is kind of a quirky way, a fun way to use the electronics that are in the taxis right now to make sure that, as people come in, that they get a friendly reminder. Today's election day, and using that opportunity to give them a few more clicks away if they choose to participate in a survey for us. Shauna Denkinson has been working directly with me on developing those questions. We expect that the taxi cab surveys will begin April 2001. With Parks and Recreation, we're going to have voter drives manned by their staff through our Train the Trainer programs, and we'll also have our youth voter poets begin performances in the parks in the spring and summer of 2012. Department of Transportations, we're looking to have variable signs that will be listed. So it will say election day is today, vote, so something like that we're working on with them. So in each agency, we're looking for unique ways that they can really help in our goals. In terms of the Youth Poet Laureate Program, we have sent out letters and we're awaiting response from potential sponsors. Some of them include AT&T and Con Edison, and those go on, and we're looking for a media sponsor there as well. Now, a lot of our efforts are going toward a Queens voter awareness program. And part of that is in conversations with Amy and with Shauna that we're trying to conduct a pilot program for voter awareness. And since we have one city council race that is happening in the city, we're going to use that opportunity to try to increase voter participation in that area, or at least voter registration and voter registration. So to that end, on August 10th, we are holding a community meeting in Queens. We are preparing with the communications department here with Elizabeth Up all the communications tools and materials that we will use. We're partnering with the local public access television station QPTV to record, edit, and transmit a program of the candidates' 2-minute statements that will be on their channels. We are working with our candidate services unit, and they are working as liaisons with us under the direction of Dan Cho. And they're working directly with the candidates to schedule the tapings for August 16th, which will happen. In addition, QPTV will produce an in-studio candidates forum in September featuring all of the candidates, and it will be hosted by Queens Courier Publisher. The community groups are going to be asked to help us in each of those efforts, and clearly we want them to encourage their constituents to watch these programs, to link to the CFB webpage, to distribute our printed guides to their constituents, and to attend the candidates forum and participate in the Q&A. And so that's some of the things that we're going to do.
Question?
Go ahead.
Yeah, is that, is there an interest or obligation or opportunity to be involved in the other obvious race, which is a congressional race, or are we mandated to only focus on local races, i.e. nothing with a federal tint? That seems to be the obvious race.
Yes. No. Yeah, we have to produce a voter guide.
Mm-hmm.
We're mandated only to produce voter guides for local races. I mean, it was always a CFB mandate that's going on, but we are looking into using our website to do, to have some information about the other races that are on the ballot. I mean, there's some assembly races. There's the congressional race in Queens.
Right.
But since we were building this based on our existing mandate to do a printed voter guide, which exists, that mandate is only for city offices.
Okay. But if the overall goal or measuring of success in the test case is turnout in this fall, right? I mean, I'm not sure it's the same district, or at least overlapping.
Well, I think part of what we want to do in terms of testing is to make sure we want to test a small area to see if we can get increased partners. So to get voter outreach partners, so we're thinking in the city council way, we can reach out to stakeholders in that community, have them do voter registration drives, have them link to our website, have them sign up their constituents, getting their emails and information as such. So we're coming up with a series of things for them to participate and see if that will help in the end in terms of participation. So not only how many people are going out and voting, but how many people are showing interest in the process.
And also, I'm not 100, I'm pretty sure that there's actually not any geographic overlap between that Queens Brooklyn Congressional District and Council District 28, which is right in southeast Queens. I think it's further out than
I
the
do,
Congressional
I
District.
appreciate that. I do
Yeah.
think, though, that it's probably, if we're trying to drum up some interest, I mean, the big election is obviously the open congressional
Yes.
seat. I think it would be unwise to miss that opportunity to also, I mean, that's where the attention's going to be. You know, that might be more a metric that we don't want to ignore simply because it's, maybe nothing we planned for.
I had a question about the TLC initiative. Is that just the yellow taxis right now? Is that what you're referring to? Just yellow, right? There's no possibility of doing any other
Correct.
medallions or anything like that?
Correct, at this point.
That's primarily Manhattan, then?
Correct.
Yeah.
It's because it's coordinated with the TV program, right?
Right.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
through that TV.
So that
That
that's
TV.
great.
It's
Yeah.
TV and the taxi TV. So we're using that as another opportunity. So really, when you're talking about local law 29 and you're looking at the agencies, you're looking at what they have that can help to increase voter awareness. So in our meeting with TLC, they said, well, we have this tool. How can we best use this tool to encourage whoever we come in contact with?
And is it thought of to be, are you going to do sort of infomercials on there and reminders to vote?
Yes, there will be a message that will say, remember, today is election day. Did you vote today? And if they click and they want to continue, then it will say a series of questions like, if you didn't go vote, why? Or do you plan on voting later? Do you live in New York City? So there will be a series of questions, not that we feel that this is a great big, statistics builder. However, we might get some information that is interesting, and it's their way, and this is just one of the many things that they're going to do to try to get the message of the importance of voting out. So they're going to use that tool.
Is this running only on the election day?
Right now it is, but it's not to say that that has to be, because we've had other efforts with them where it ran 2 weeks out. But the message of today is election day would have to be on that day.
It seems like there might be an opportunity to actually do something before that, and then actually couple it with some kind of reminder, like opt into an email or text message reminder.
Yeah.
Right.
And
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, because it's mainly in Manhattan, we do have a very important assembly race in my district. And September 13th might be a special election for the congressional seat, but it is an election date for the assembly races. Valerie, how many assembly candidates are there? 3?
3.
No. And so the one in Manhattan, it would seem to me, would be a very good test area for the taxi and limousine people to try out a variety of scenarios. Because my district votes very heavily.
Okay.
Actually, if we could work with them, we could work with them probably before, I mean, it's a little too late now, but in terms of right before the last date to register to vote, to be eligible, so you can have a reminder. Are you registered to vote? If not, they could link right to where they could actually get
Very
the
good.
application.
Well, let me just be clear. This taxi TV survey is going to start in April 2012. So they're still developing
Oh, so
it.
they're still.
So
okay.
that's not
you
for
would
this
definitely have
year.
time for-
Absolutely. However, to that point, we have created, and as a matter of fact, we just internally looked at a bug that the communications department created that all of the agencies so far have agreed to do, where it would say, we'll send them 4 voter spotlights. And the first voter spotlight arrives on August 1st, today. And that is this year. And it says, remember, August 19th is the last day to register to vote to participate in the September primary. Then for the primary, they receive another one 2 weeks out, reminding them of that, and then the same repeats for the October deadline and the November election. And they have
Who
agreed.
does that go to?
That goes to the 16 agencies with Local Law 29. And also all of the partners, as they come on board, we ask them if they would also do that. They're supposed to share that with not only all of their constituents, but also to all of their staff.
So we both their external website and their intranet, to the extent that they have internal for communications of these city agencies that are required to have voter assistance plans. And the city agencies that are involved are really the ones that, if you look at the list of names, are the agencies that have the most contact with the general public. So, so if you look at, it's DEP, it's the Department of Finance, it's all these agencies that people routinely go to their website. So it's a lot of people will see those, voter bugs. And then for other agencies, it's because each agency has to develop their own plan of what they do. So, the taxis, the Limousine Commission came up with this kind of interesting idea, to do this interactive survey. But as Onita said, Department of Transportation is thinking about doing those variable signs that are on the highway, which are mostly in the outer boroughs, having, remember today is election day, did you vote, or, whatever, short message, I don't know how, those have to be pretty short, but there's different things for all the, each constituent group that the different agencies reach, and, some are more focused on different parts of the city, depending on what agency it is.
Right, and for instance, Human Rights has decided that they want to do a voting rights movie, and it will be a short, and they would put it on their website. So they felt that while they will still distribute voter registration forms in their public places, they feel that people aren't really invited in that environment to register to vote. So another way for them, since they are human rights, they would like to produce something on voting rights. And they would bring a celebrity in, and they're going to begin to script it, and then they will start to put it on their website.
That's very good.
But a lot of this really requires a lot of brainstorming with each of the agencies, because it's not what they're accustomed to do. And this is, how it has changed in the last 6 months of working here with the Campaign Finance Board, is that we've just really spent a lot of time with each of them trying to figure out where are their strengths, what are their resources. Then we grow from each conversation, because someone will say something and they'll say, oh, wow, that's great, let me go back to the others. And it came up, well, we do employee packages for all new employees. We should put voter registration forms in there. Yeah, absolutely. So they're talking about different ways that they interact with their staff and with their clients, and how they can start to bring in voter education as part of it.
John, do you?
Yeah, I think that's all fantastic, but in particular on something that's technological like the taxi, I would encourage us to encourage them not to put it all on election day, because for many people that's too late. So to have reminders about when registration due dates are, primaries, and the election day itself, and then a run-up to each.
Right.
So, rather than just putting all the marbles on election day when it's too late for some folks.
Okay, thank you. And we do have a really good relationship with them, and I'd have to say that when we did the first video voter guide, that was among the first PSAs that were ever used in the taxi and limousine. So I'm sure they will accommodate us.
So I thank you for all your comments. I just have a number of just sort of follow-ups here, and just to sort of try to consolidate comments from John and Tony. Local Law 29 is extraordinarily important, and you're making some terrific efforts here. So thank you very, very much for that. I think it'd be very helpful to have a calendar so we can see exactly what's happening out over time. And then particularly, I think there are a number of folks around here who'd be interested in efforts that are occurring up to the primary in September, in terms of our outreach to potential voters. I think it's also extremely important to think about the amount of investment that we're making in these efforts and what our expected return is on those things. We've spoken about the issue of scalability, about having a significant impact. I think it's very important to sort of have in mind and understand in advance what we think the expected results are of these efforts and how we're going to actually achieve those results. and if there are better ways to do those things. And I think in particular, we're going to be looking for things that include ways to concretely measure the engagement of voters or potential voters or even just citizens on the kind of media efforts that we're making, whether they're going through local law 29 or whether they're coming directly from the Campaign Finance Board or the Voter Assistance Advisory Committee.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so do I have a motion to go into executive session?
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Okay. Yeah, aye.
Thank you.
Susan will note in the minutes what time we have in
Okay.
Angie, just want to show you that even in your first paragraph, you don't say voters assistance.
No, we'll put it,
So please.
Okay.
So, just for the members of the public, when we started talking about contracting partners in the executive session, a brief discussion occurred that requires a recap because it probably should have occurred in public session about leveraging our work with local law 29 agencies and making sure that when on all the work that we do for voter assistance, that we make sure that we are reaching the broadest number of people in the broadest methods possible, including electronic media like Facebook and Twitter, and so that we keep in mind our actual that the amount of our investment is and what our expected return for each thing is, that we have what the pilot programs we do, we have an idea of how we're going to scale them up in the future, and that we have concrete measures of success for every project that we do. In addition, one to develop, and I guess we already have sort of a calendar of events, but to really expand that calendar of events and make sure that all the projects that we do are calendared. I don't know if people have other, if I summarized what that discussion was. Enough.
I think that was very good.
Okay.
Thank you. Perfect. And just want to make a note that in the executive session, there were no votes taken. I guess the next, should we go on to the other business?
I guess we've already kind of had a brief update on the town hall and the democracy project, unless anyone has anything to add about either of those items. Eric, did you have anything? Okay.
Okay, and then there have been some very gratifying expressions of support for the efforts of the Voter Assistance Advisory Committee, especially related to the 21st Century Democracy Project. There is a need and an opportunity to amplify the voice of the Voter Assistance Advisory Committee in this regard, to bring together folks who are expert in digital outreach, digital media outreach, to try to attract more people to the effort, and then to also amplify the results of the effort, particularly in our next town hall, out to the public. And so in that regard, we discussed the creation of a working group that would bring together volunteers from the private sector who could effectively advise the Voter Assistance Advisory Committee in how best to construct a town hall event so that it could most amplify the voice, to design web and other forms of outreach to be able to bring multiple points of view and opinions in, and then to help us figure out how to take the efforts by the public and by the committee and other volunteers and actually turn those into actionable items going forward. To that end, I'd like to propose the creation of something called the Digital Action Working Group, which would be a volunteer group that would not have any, that would not have the ability to bind or otherwise officially represent the Voter Assistance Advisory Committee, but would actually help us expand our voice out to the public and help us do what we do better. So I'd like to have a motion to approve.
I'll make the motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Terrific. Thank you.
Okay, and I guess the last thing that I somehow neglected to put on the agenda that John pointed out is that to talk about the draft of the mission statement that the staff had written for the group and whether people had comments on that. I guess because we're on the webcam, I'll read it aloud so that the public can hear it. The proposed mission statement for the Voter Assistance Advisory Committee is: the Voter Assistance Advisory Committee advises and assists the Campaign Finance Board in its mandates to promote voter registration and turnout, conduct outreach to underrepresented populations, increase voter education and engagement, monitor trends in voter registration and voting, and make recommendations to encourage and facilitate these goals. So I'm open to any, suggestions on improvements to this.
I think it looks great. The only thing, I'd like to see some reference to leveraging new technology in there, because I do think that's an important part of, I think, what we can uniquely provide. And it's more a means in the pursuit of those goals, but I do think that should be in there.
I have, I don't know what that, but I have a suggestion, and I know that the people who spent many hours working on this mission statement that didn't necessarily include me, maybe, is what if we added a second, that's sort of one sentence where I read, and what if we added sort of a second sentence that is to, sort of how we do that, and it could be in the, and this is just, they do that by leveraging new technology and working with, other agencies, both within the city and outside to meet those goals, or some
Public and
better,
private entities.
something more better stated than what I just said, but that kind of thing. Just one more sentence that incorporates both those concepts.
Sure. Yeah, that's it, public and private
Mhm, okay.
organizations. or entities.
Yes, you have a perfect place to do it, when you say increase voter education and engagement through the facilities, the digital, whatever, or you could write that sentence blindfolded.
So how about if we do kind of work on that kind of seconds, adding those additional thoughts to this and send it around. I don't know if you have to vote on the mission statement. I think if everybody, sends their edits and agreement, we'll put it up on the Voter Assistance Advisory Committee webpage that we are working on. And it's there. I'm sorry.
There's a section.
There's a section about voter in the,
voter.
yeah.
It's there in the voter section. There's both the bio, the number bios.
Oh, that's right.
A description of the Voter Assistance Advisory Committee. But I thought the mission, and we can add the mission statement easily. I thought it was part of possibly this other page that.
No, this would be on that page, I think, on that,
On our site.
yeah. On our website, as part of that webpage that exists. I'm sorry, Elizabeth, that I had seen it and I wasn't sure if it had gone live. So we'll just, send around the proposed new language and then we'll add it to our to the website in the appropriate place, okay?
Great.
I think one thing I'd like to add is just sort of as a notion, voter engagement is really the most important thing to me.
Yeah.
Because when you look at the sort of the whole conversion from awareness to actually eventually voting, or maybe not voting, what's the purpose, right? Is it to expand our civic conversation around real issues, to affect how, candidates connect with voters around real issues that they care about in their community. So, voter registration and voting is a measure at the tail end of that, but we also need to need to have a huge emphasis on the engagement aspect, and then also the sort of the activation of voters in that civic communication, or civic conversation, however we define that. I'll be happy to propose some additional language as well. And since we are in a public session, and for the thousands of folks who are watching in on the web, feel free as well to contribute your ideas about what we think we should be doing.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Is there any other business? Any other discussion?
Sorry, just had a quick question. I was working with staff on legislation that's out there that affects the work that we're doing, and we're looking at a piece of legislation in the state legislature and the assembly, and one in the city council. I got through it late last week, and I was unclear about how I should communicate it with the board here. I just didn't know. We never talked about how that should be done, whether, you want a memo beforehand, do you want me to brief you on it at the meeting with the actual legislation? I just didn't give it much thought till I got to the end, and I realized, well, how do I share this now? We still didn't get finished talking with each other. Art, do you want to be in on our discussion there, or do you just want to, after we're done, come to you, and then we share it with the whole board, and verbally and writing? How do you want it? I didn't think about it till the end, and I'm like, I don't know what to do now. But we should respond to legislation, and one of them is specifically involving what we would do. So,
Is there a specific piece of legislation?
there's two of them pending that we've been looking at, but I didn't bring it here because I felt like it was probably not the right way to spring it upon everybody right here to think about it at this moment. But I just didn't know when you wanted to be involved, Art. Should we brief you on it beforehand and then send something in writing to the rest of the committee? We haven't even talked about how to share it.
Yeah, I think that, both the pieces of legislation that Tony's talking about are things that were briefly discussed at the last meeting. The proposal by Citizens Union that was presented last meeting about collecting email addresses and, possibly mobile telephone numbers to do announcements about voter awareness. That's the Citizens Union piece of legislation, and the other was the piece by Assemblyman Kavanaugh about pre-registration. So, I am open to either way. I think it's probably, if we want to put it on the agenda to vote on whether this committee is going to recommend that the board take a public stance. I don't know. Eric, do you know if that city council piece of legislation, I know it was introduced, but it's not appeared on a calendar for discussion yet? Okay. So we have some time.
Yeah, so maybe we can communicate about how you want to see this flow, because I do think we're going to get, and we should be actively looking at the legislation that's out there, because we should be hitched on to anything that looks good, or at least make suggestions if we want to make some changes to pending legislation, because that's something that's already, some of this is already moving, and we might as well hitch onto it if it's helping us. And there's always a slew of legislation out there that's flying around that I think we could be helpful on or interested in.
Well, maybe we should incorporate that into our mission statement, how we've been on, encouraging election reforms that help pursue these goals or something like that.
Very good
Well,
idea.
I guess that was sort of what the last bullet point was intended to encompass, but we'll make it more explicit.
Explicit is good.
Yeah.
Well, Tony, thank you for the courtesy of bringing that up. And thank you Amy, for also refreshing my memory. I do agree that we should be participating in some of these responses, and I think it will be important for us to have a voice in those things. I also appreciate the opportunity to attend every meeting, although more likely I will probably not be able to do so. So I would say go ahead and meet independently for now. And if you think that there's something that requires us to do something, I'd love to know in advance. And I
think that would be,
That's probably enough, and then we
we'll
can
send you an
circulate.
email.
That sounds
Your
perfect.
favorite.
Terrific, or Facebook.
Facebook.
Okay.
Great, so, shall we, any other business, or can
Oh,
we bring
do
this?
you- what?
That's what I was gonna do. Great, thanks. So may I have a motion to adjourn? Motion.
Do we adjourn before we have public comment?
Do we have public comments?
Is there?
Is there anyone who wants to make public comment, I guess?
Great.
Motion.
A motion to adjourn.
No move.
Thank you.
You could come up and make a
And
comment.
second?
We have
All in
one
favor?
public person.
Aye. Okay, thank you very much.
Squeeze in the meeting right in.